You are now listening to the Grio's Black Podcast Network, Black Culture Amplified. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Dear Culture here on the Grio Black Podcast Network. I am your host, Panama Jackson, and I hope you've been checking out all the episodes of Dear Culture because every episode has been a conversation about some aspect of Black culture. We've been talking about songs, is Usher a legend? We talked about movies. We talked about all kind of things. But today we have somebody here that actually curates the culture in a very interesting way. Somebody who's creating culture, who's behind the scenes on things. Her bio is amazing. She's been a part of every project I think I wanted to be a part of, and some I've been upset to see and read. So before we dig into that, please put your virtual and digital hands together for Naima Cochran. How you doing today?
Thank you. I'm great, Panama. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that intro. Those intros still bug me out, but I'm learning to accept it.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I actually want to tell you how I came to know who you were. We've only met once, and that was at the Roots picnic recently. And I don't think you had any idea who I was, but you were with Mouse Jones, and he said, "Do you know Naima?" And I was like, "One name, Naima?" Because that's what that's how significant you are in spaces that I frequent. Like, I know of you by your first name. So you up there with B and J and all those other people in the Black cultural.
My God.
Listen, but let me tell you why. This is actually going to be really fun. One is actually really fun, and one is like, I was like, who are these people? The fun one is, a couple years ago, I wanted to do this series I want to do this series about Black pop art. And I was going to do like a Black History Month, 28 days of like Black pop art. I love Black pop art. Like, I literally, if my wife would let me fill the house with pictures of Bob Marley and Tupac in pictures together with Left Eye,
with the angel wings on the back.
Listen, if it wasn't for my wife, my house would be full of that type of stuff, but she's like, absolutely not. So I had to confine it to my own personal spaces. But you curated this amazing Twitter thread of all this stuff. And I was like, I thought I was going to have to do a lot of work to find it, but boom, there it is right there. I was like, oh, here's everything I'm literally looking for. I couldn't do it because of legal clearances because I don't know who did any of that stuff.
Right.
But I was so excited. I was like, yo, who is this person that did all the heavy lifting for me on this stuff that I'm trying to do? And it was you, including my favorite work, which is the one of Malcolm X baptizing Tupac in a river somewhere. I'm just going to assume it's Mississippi. And all these Black people. Anyway, so that's the first. Yeah.
And I think Thug Life is misspelled or something. That one exists in a world courtesy of Tyrese, which makes sense.
Did Tyrese actually create that art? Because if he did, he's actually a brilliant artist.
I'm not sure. Because he also has this really big mural in his home. And I think he's presented it as though he did it. But I don't, like you said, he would be a brilliant artist, but I can definitely see Tyrese as a savant of sorts. I'm still not clear if he did the artwork, but he's, like, if you want to talk about provenance of art, it starts with Tyrese. With Tyrese, yeah.
Mythologically speaking, I associate that piece with Tyrese, and I wanted to do the entire series just so I could exalt and uplift that one particular piece that I've wanted to do as a mural in my house. But again, my wife is like, absolutely not.
Your wife has sense.
When it comes to that, that's probably true. That is I am willing to indulge all manner of foolywaying. Secondly, though, you were a part of, this was a couple years ago, it was like 100 songs that defined New York rap. Now, I'm not from New York. I'm not from New York City. I saw this list and I wanted to fight everybody involved. So I, of course, looked at the list and I had to see whose names were involved. Good friend of mine, Shamir Ibrahim, was a part of that. And I saw your name on there. And we did like a podcast episode of another podcast about that. We were talking about this. And I was like, what was going through y'all people's brains when y'all put together this list?
Can I explain?
Oh, please, feel free.
Okay. First of all, shout out to my dear friend, Will E. Ketchum, who was one of the editors for that list, but who is not from New York, right? Okay. I was probably the only Xer who actually has a New York. I was born in New York. I grew up in South Carolina, but I spent all my summers and holidays here, and I've been here my entire adult life. So I was the only Xer kind of representing that boom bap era. Like, I had to throw. So I came in, we ranked, everybody did their own personal ranking, and then they ranked everything collectively based on each individual ranking, which I don't know if that was the best way to do it, you know? It was definitely a little bit of a skewed list. Like, I had to fight to put Nobody Beats the Biz up in there, and I had to fight to get a couple of other joints in there where I was like, we can't not have these up in there. But yeah, that's what happened with that. It was like individually ranked and then collectively based on the individual rankings. This is why I hate ranked lists though. Like, it never bodes well for anybody.
I don't know. It bodes well for all of us who like to argue about this stuff. Like, it literally, I mean, it's the perfect, it's like provocative. It's literally, nobody knows this, but it's provocative. It's literally that. I was so mad, and I'm not even from New York, but I was like, and it wasn't even the top of the list. It was like some of the things that were on the list and where they were placed. Like, but again, it gives people like myself it gives all of us who argue all day long online things to talk about and fight about for a solid week. It was awesome. It was awesome as far as I was concerned.
Let's be honest. These lists are created just so everybody can argue about
Absolutely.
them. That's really their intention.
And we all need things to argue about, so that's perfect. We're going to take a quick break here on Dear Culture. Stay tuned. So part of the reason why I wanted to have you on here is because you curate the amazing music sermon IG and like the Black Music Month thing that you do. You extended into the Black Summer. But before we get to that, I actually wanted to kind of get into how you got to this place where you are a curator of culture. In your bio on your website, you have an amazing line that I think literally symbolizes what I like to do as well, which is putting Black culture in context. Like, I love that line. Like, I stopped at that and I'm reading. I'm like, man, that's such an interesting way to exist as a person, as a job, as a profession. I don't know if you call it, like, literally you put it on the record, but what does that mean for you? And how did you get to the point, like, where putting Black culture in context is what you do, I presume, for a living at this point?
Right. So to explain that line, I do have to go a little bit into my resume. I was a music industry executive for many, 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 many years. And then at several different labels, Bad Boy, Arista, Columbia, Epic. And then I moved over to the management side. And in both of those roles, both of those arenas, what you were working with is the commodification of Blackness, Black culture, Black arts, Black ideas, Black creatives, which we now also see in digital. We see it in every space we occupy, right? And what people don't really understand about label executives is that not only are we fighting for our artists, but we are usually fighting to keep the relevant context around our music and our art and our culture, because we're usually in buildings where the ultimate decision makers don't understand all of it. They just know something's making money, something's connecting, something's not. One of my best examples of that is when we were rolling out Bands Make Her Dance for Juicy J. And they using hands, bands will make her dance, bands will make her dance. Those were some really awkward meetings. It's like 1/4 of the conference room is wilding out and everybody else is really uncomfortable. Or like, video edits with the password strippers, like that type of thing. So it is a fight to kind of like make sure that things don't get lost in a translation between creating it and how we present it to the consumer. And then in management, it's the same thing. I'm trying to help translate an artist's voice to their work, to their art, to the people who are going to help package it, manufacture it, and sell it without certain things getting lost. So now, as a music and culture journalist, historian, researcher, etc., this is my opportunity to do it on a larger platform, right? Because there is a lot of history, recipes, whatever you want to call it, is lost, and or is being lost. And sometimes I see, like, for example, we're having this whole 90s resurgence, but there's a lot around it that isn't being added to the story. There are a lot of people calling folks culture vultures without really understanding there's a form of erasure in what they're saying for certain people for certain reasons. So that's my thing, is like, not only just for non-Black people, but also for some younger generations of Black people. Like, I really kind of wanted to go on a mission to kind of put our stories about our music, about our art, about these cultural moments within a framework that help you understand like how we got there, what the landscape was like at the time, and how it connects the dots to the present. So that's my mission, and that's what I started doing with Music Sermon.
I love that. And I got to tell you why. So I'm one of those people who has so I've been writing for years at this point. Started VSB in 2008 with Damon and Liz. And, you know, we were writing about relationships and then culture. And at some point, and a lot about race and things like that, right? And at some point I decided, like, wholesale, like, I'm not writing about white people anymore. Like, I'm literally leaving them completely out of the conversation. There's no more white gays for me. Like, it's 100% celebrating Blackness. It's 100% enjoying being Black and what all that, like, there has to be some celebration and joy in what it is we're doing. It can't all be Blackness as a pathology of some sort or in comparison to what's happening in the white community. So much so that I did this, I curated this series when I was at The Root called The Black Mainstream. And it was built out of this idea that I remember I was listening to another podcast. I won't get heavy into what that one was, but they made this comment about Arsenio Hall and how he wasn't like, whether like Coming to America was Arsenio Hall's biggest moment. And I was like, nah, it's the Arsenio Hall show. But I was like, but you got to be Black to know that there has to be something that like in the mainstream Black culture, in our culture, the Arsenio Hall show was like this apex. So I then enlisted all these people to kind of write about like Black culture. Like one of my boys, Damon, wrote an article about all of us thinking Georgetown was an HBCU at one point because there was, you know, like in the 90s, it was like, I don't want to go to Georgetown. They got a number of Black people everywhere. You just think like right. So it was like all these discussions about, one was about The Coldest Winter Ever. I was like, that's a book everybody I know hadn't read. Like that was like, you know. So I do that kind of thing as a rule because I love the idea of framing culture in mainstream as like a Black thing. Like this is how I grew up and this is what I do. The rest of this is like, it's important because it's the world we live in, but and that's how even the Black pop art thing, that's why I loved it. I'm like, this is literally what I love seeing, like this stuff that's ridiculous on his face, but you know, it's value in our community. Like it brings all this stuff to us.
Right. And there are themes there. That's the thing. There are themes there. There are, you know, repeated patterns there. You really can examine it like art, even though sometimes it's really absurd and crazy. Like there's definitely something that is so uniquely Black about it. You got to appreciate it for that.
Yeah. So when did you get to the point where like this is... Like, when did you realize that you were, like, good at doing that thing? Because you're an executive, you're a manager.
Right.
But, you know, like, I read the essay that you did in the Smithsonian's Anthology of Hip Hop and Rap. Like, I had a chance to cover that. I have the box set. It's an amazing thing.
Right.
Like, when do you realize, like, I'm somebody who is good at doing these things and putting these things in perspective and curating that stuff? Like, when did that happen for you?
I didn't realize I didn't realize it was what I was good at until after I started doing it. Let me explain that. So I started doing Music Sermon as a series of Twitter threads in 2017. A matter of fact, the 5-year anniversary is on July 29th. And I was doing it kind of out of a sense of me missing a certain element of the fun of the business, right? So I'd seen people kind of do these video threads before, and it was the 25th anniversary, I think, of What's the 411? And I started talking, I was watching the Real Love video, which led me to a whole bunch of other Big Leslie Sager choreographed videos, which was basically every knee pads, tennis skirt, baseball cap, kick, you know, turn, drop, you know, video. And the first thread I ever did was how we danced hard as F in the 90s. We danced to everything. Like you can't, Gen X got their 10,000 hours in before we finished high school. You cannot touch us on an 8 count. You can't do it. That's all we did. We did it every day we got home from school. We just had them in pocket ready to go. So, that led to me thinking, you know who we don't talk enough about? This person or this person or this person. And also people were retweeting, but also retweeting with their own like shared experience, their own nostalgia, their own memories, and people were talking to each other, and it was communal, right? And I did a couple more threads, even though I said I wasn't going to become the quote unquote thread person. And after like maybe, and first it was just like for me and my peers, like just kind of a memory lane, give somebody their flowers. Like I talked about Uptown, I talked about Latifah and Salt-N-Pepa and Light, you know, and it got to Babyface, I think. And that's when 20-something started chiming in like, I didn't know he did this song. I didn't know the song was a sample. I had no idea about this. And then I did one about like the adultery R&B of the 80s or the 70s. And that's when it was really kind of like, I had no idea. I was today years old, etc. So I was like, oh, there's an educational component here. And because I've been on the executive side and the management side, and I'm a fan, and I was quote unquote there in real time in the 90s, I have a point of view that not a whole lot of people in journalism have. And it kind of, I sit at a spot where I'm able to tie a whole bunch of different elements in together to create a full picture. And I realized that I had a way of translating these things to people clearly in a way that they could actually access and understand, but it's still being entertaining. And I don't really know where that comes from. I don't really know how to do it. I just know that I watched a whole lot of TV and listened to a whole lot of music and watched a whole lot of movies and then worked in it. And then somehow I'm able to now write about it. So once I realized it was something I did well, I wanted to do more of it because I just felt like our stories were getting lost. I felt like history was being rewritten very often based on pictures taken out of context, based on a paragraph or a story or an interview that nobody dug back to the source of, etc. And I just kind of wanted there to be a correct record of things for people to have.
I love that. You're like my spirit animal. Like literally everything that you were saying is like my entire ethos in how I've carried my own personal career for so long. Like even the educational part of it. A couple years ago, I wrote an article like, when did you find out Bobby Caldwell was white? Because that's it
happens like once a year on Twitter.
Yeah, every year people
it's like Groundhog's Day.
This. It's the craziest thing. Like, why are people still finding out that this man is white? But it happens, and people don't know, and it's like this whole new world is opening up for people. So I love that. So what we're gonna do? We're gonna take a real quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna dig into the music sermon and experiences with that and all that, because it's one of my favorite things. It's one of my favorite things to participate in. For various reasons, some selfish, some cultural, and but I love it, and I'm glad you do it. So we're gonna take a quick break here on Dear Culture. Stay tuned.
The Griot Black Podcast Network is here. Everything you've been waiting for. Black Culture Amplified. Find your voice on the Black Podcast Network. Listen today on the Griot mobile app and tune in everywhere great podcasts are heard.
All right, we're back on Dear Culture, and I'm talking with Naima Cochrane, a cultural curator of blackness, somebody who puts black culture in context, a person who literally does everything that I ever want to do in my life. We do it in different places, but I love it. And you are the creator of one of my favorite indulgences online, which is your music sermon, IG, but the series you do for Black Music Month. I love it for a couple reasons. One, selfish. I'm a music snob, and I think I'm better at music than everybody else, present company included. So I think that I know songs that nobody else knows. So when you get an opportunity to let a couple shots off, like, you know what, let me show y'all what I know. I love doing that. But also I like seeing all the songs that everybody else includes on the various prompts that you come up with. One of my favorite ones, because it actually gave me an idea, was the one about like a song with a whole monologue in the middle. Because I don't think people realize how many songs have monologues in them. Like my favorite has always been Orange Juice Jones, like Walking in the Rain.
This with the juice. I gave you silk suits, Gucci handbags, blue diamonds. I gave you things you couldn't even pronounce. Now I can't give you nothing but advice, because you're still young.
Yes.
Because it's such a fun thing. I was like, man, this should be like a one-act play. Like somebody needs to do a one-act play of just like monologues people using like monologues in songs, I mean, the clearance issues would be a mess.
That's a genius idea, though.
Yeah, I was like, I want to see somebody do this monologue. Like, this would be amazing, like an interpretation, or even like this is at the beginning of the song, but like Alexander O'Neal and Sherelle's Saturday Love, one of my favorite songs of all time. Like, the opening is so bad. It's such a horrible.
There's this whole soap opera opening, like, oh no,
it's so terrible.
It's her.
See, you haven't changed. It's good to see you anyway. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday,
How does she know I'm
it's
here?
Awful. The beginning of Fire and Desire.
Oh, yes.
Wow. It's really good to see you again, baby.
Like, yeah, it's a whole, somebody really should turn that into a production. You're absolutely right. That would be amazing.
It'd be wonderful. So let's jump into this music sermon thing. So you created it in 2017. What's been like your favorite experience because of it thus far? Actually, tell people what it is, and then I want to know about like some of your favorite experiences, because I feel like everybody named Mama knows what this thing is. Like the famous people, not famous people, but everybody participates. Questlove, like everybody else, is like, yo, we waiting on them prompts, homie, which has to be annoying. I want to get into that too.
Yo.
But break it down.
Yeah. So Music Sermon actually started as a weekly series, a weekly storytelling series. And I had to dead that part of it after a couple of years because I would always put video clips in every tweet to kind of assist with the storytelling. And the Copyright Police, I'm on the top 10 most wanted list. And, fortunately, I have, friends at Twitter who I can't say they necessarily pulled strings, but they would help expedite. I definitely had to counter, because people hit me all the time about getting their accounts back. I definitely still had to go through the, counter everything with every notification. So I didn't skip any steps. I just had people who helped make sure like that folks were paying attention to the fact that I was countering and whatever. So after I lost my account for like the bajillionth time, and I have a whole, like my burner has 30,000 followers. That's how often I get suspended. That I was finally like, okay, clearly, because the problem with the copyright, the DMCA rules, and they especially stepped it up during the pandemic, is that they can pull something that you posted at any point. So I was getting hit for stuff from like 2018, even from 2017. And the only real recourse would have been to like just delete my whole account. So I was just like, I'm going to chill on the weekly series. But I also started for Black Music Month. I started this challenge. I think I started it in 2018. And for the month of June, I'd seen like 30-day music challenges before. So I wanted to craft one that was specifically for Black music. And kind of like what happened with Music Sermon as a storytelling series that I didn't expect was people really got engaged. And the thing that's great about it, the reason Music Sermon took off, it isn't so much what I do, it's the fact that people have really formed like a community around this. So starting with the storytelling series, people would respond, like I said, to tweets, like I said with the first one, and be like, oh my God, I remember this, or I didn't know this, or oh, I had this haircut. I remember wearing this outfit. Oh, like I posted, something had Coffee Brown's after party and somebody was like, an apple martini just showed up in my hand. Like that type of thing. So, and they would talk to each other, and it really became like a little community. They know each other. They are familiar with each other. Quest even this year gave me like a huge compliment, which is kind of compared it to the OK Player boards, back in the day.
Though. I agree with that.
Yeah. And he said that site, but I knew what he meant. So, some of the biggest moments early were like Ava DuVernay jumping on, Lin-Manuel Miranda jumping on. I did a whole thread about Missy. Missy herself retweeted it and thanked me. When the artist that I'm talking about saw it, would see it, and actually jump in and co-sign or thank me or repost it or whatever, that was huge. So those obviously were really big moments for me. And it opened the door to my journalism career. Editors started following me and they started seeing what I was doing and started tapping me to do kind of niche stuff on legacy artists because it was clearly a space. My rule was no pop star, none of the big stars, no Michael, no Janet, no Mariah, no Whitney, and all pre-2000. I was trying to cover pre-blog era stuff.
Okay.
With a little bit of early aughts, just a little bit. But it was really more like the stuff before we started tracking every move that artists made and having behind the musics and, you know, all of that. And every once in a while I do cover the bigs.
I mean, you got a Stevie Wonder thing
other
going
ways,
on, right? Like you did the Stevie Wonder thing.
Yeah, so
right?
I had a Stevie thing, and Stevie was like a Stevie is daunting, you know what I mean? Because there's just so much. So it was like, how do you cover that? So when we started the Black Music Month, when I started the Black Music Month Challenge, at first it was just a way to, again, keep people engaged, give people something to do. Because honestly, I do stuff that I want to do, right? So if it's fun to me, I'm going to try to figure out a way to translate it to be, you know, to do it for everybody else. And people just happen to love it. Now, this was I did it 18, 19, 20, 21. Yeah, so this was my 5th summer doing the Black Music Month Challenge. I don't know what happened this year. I don't know what the tipping point was. I don't know what connected. I don't know how, but it went so widely viral. I wasn't even prepared. Like, my friends are hitting me, like, people who don't even know I know you were posting this, people who don't even occupy the same space of the internet I do are posting this. I was in a room in Nashville and I had both a 20-year-old and a 40-something-year-old talk to me about how they do the challenge. You know, so it's just wildly, like, the connectivity this year was wild. I honestly can't speak to what it was. I'm humbled and I love that people are taking joy out of this, obviously, which is why I expanded it. And that's the part that's what I get from it, is just seeing how people love it and connect to it and are like, yes, thank you for this. Clearly there's a need for it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's the part where I think, you know, you make it with something where the individual attached to it, like the thing that you create is the stuff that travels. Like, it's not dependent on the fact that you did it. It's just that it's dope. And however it happened. And I agree. Like, it felt like this year, I would see those prompts everywhere. Like, every single person on no matter what social media I was using was sharing these things and arguing about songs and trying to put people up on game and stuff like that. And I think that's part of, even when when I ran into you at the Roots Picnic, I was already thinking about podcast episodes. So when I saw you, I was like, this is somebody I want to talk about creating culture, like cultural curation, because you are doing something that I'm actively going to participate in. I'm looking forward to. Which brings me to something. How annoying is it when people are like, yo, where the prompt? Where's it at? Like, where is it? I saw you had to post something about that. Like, fam, I'm busy, Holmes. Like, trust me, life is also lifing. But that's part of that's part of it too. Like, it's like it's a good problem, but it's part of the game too. Like,
it is a good problem. It is. It's a good problem. You know, it varies. Every year during the Black Music Month Challenge, there comes a point, like towards the end of like the second week, the beginning of the third week, where people start getting on my nerves. But it's all well intended. I appreciate the fact that folks enjoy it so much that there's demand there. But some people are really rude about it. And that's the part that hits me. There's a level of entitlement. Like, you know, people were fussing at me because I have, you know, a Black Rock Day or a Black Jazz Day. And, you know, there was one person who was like, it's the least you could have done. And I'm like, no, the least I could have done is not do this at all. You know, so, you know, it's just kind of like, I created a space I saw missing. Right. So it's easy for people to come in and see now that my Twitter account has 50,000 followers and the IG account has, you know, 49,000 followers. And I got bylines and I got whatever, and just say, well, you have the platform, you could do X, Y, Z. But I built this platform. And that's the thing that I think that people don't really appreciate. I've been building this for 5 years. I built it because it was something I wanted. So if you see something that's missing, build yours, you know, and I've never been shy that this is like an R&B and hip hop centered platform. I want to expose people to other things, but this is mine. So, you know, it's a community, but it's mine ultimately. And I tell people that a lot of times. Often I will make an arbitrary call on what I do and don't want to do because it's mine. But I think that's the part that kind of I have to push past sometimes, is people are enthusiastic about it. People are engaged. I appreciate that. But there is an entitlement. Like, y'all don't pay for this. It's not sponsored content. Like, it's not like, brought to you by Apple Music. It's not sponsored by Ciroc. You know what I mean? Like, it's just me on the humble. So, but the vast majority of people appreciate it. They love it. They enjoy it. They thank me. They participate in good faith and good spirit. But yeah, there's those one or two. Like, I went to my page one day, I think it was like 2:00 to finally post, and under another post, it was mad people like, where's the prompt? What's the prompt? Run it up, hurry up, time's ticking, da-da-da. And I was like, really? That kind of hurt, but I gotta push past those days.
Do you have like a list of potential prompts, or are you coming up with these things like daily? Because I can see it both ways. Like, at some point you run out of prompts. It's like, you know what? I got to come up with something right now. So let me think about it. Right. But I would also probably if I'm doing something like that, so I used to do this 28 Days of Black History Month for like books and video. So I basically try to come up with the entire list ahead of time so I would be prepared because, it's always going to be that one day where, oh crap, I thought I was ready, but I'm not. And I got to come up with something. And, that stuff gets stressful. Right. Not even stressful.
Stressful. Yeah, no, for Black Music Month, I come up with all the prompts ahead of time. And actually, the very first thing I post at the beginning of the month has them all.
That's right, you did that.
But people want the individual daily graphics to repost. Yeah, now for Black Music Summer, I've been freestyling because it's once a week. So I figure I have enough time to kind of figure out where I'm going to go. But there is a list on the Notes app in my phone that's several lists. Some are like potential sermon topics I never did. Some are potential prompts. So I do have like a store of things that I pull from. And then my friends are often hitting me up like, yo, you should do XYZ. Like, shout out to my friend Antonia. She gave me 2 of the prompts for this summer. But so yeah, for Black Music Summer, the extension is a combination of the two because this is the first time I'm doing this. And since I'm only doing one a week instead of one daily, it gives me a little bit more time to kind of flow and move based on how I feel.
Do you, for every one of the prompts, and forgive me if I just don't know this because I'm so busy trying to come up with my own that I don't actually go through the comments because I don't want somebody to influence. Right. Like, I don't want to find out that I'm not as special as I think I am.
Right.
Do you have... do you drop your own songs in each one of these things, or do you just drop the bomb on it? And then, because I see you comment on stuff on occasion, but I'm not I see your name in there, but it's usually comment on stuff. But I never actually try to look to see if you are actually dropping song choices. If I drop my own,
I do sometimes. I do for Black Music Month. I try to as often as I can. There are some days when I just don't. I might even have the idea. I might even know what I want to do, and I just don't have the opportunity to because I really do want to amplify other people because a lot of people get put on, like you said, you like to see what other people choose. Sometimes that's one of the things people love. They love to argue about music. There are a couple of prompts that I already know in advance are arguing days, so I'm just in the comments posted up to watch. And a lot of times what I do on IG specifically is I will just add my commentary on top of other people's. Like, this is my joint. I do sometimes, though, if I see something missing that nobody's posted yet and it's one of mine, I'll post it. Or if I feel like it'll help kind of jog the conversation a little bit, I'll post. But when I'm trying to do both, especially for the 30-day challenge, it can feel laborious. Like, I gotta post mine and I gotta repost everybody else's and I want to comment and I want to participate. So sometimes it's easier to just bob and weave in and out.
All right. So I'm glad you said that because I actually have a couple prompts that I want to give to you right now and see how quickly you could come up with a song. I only came up with 3 and it should be easy.
Okay.
So, favorite Black Christmas song that isn't this Christmas?
Oh, that's easy. Temptation Silent Night.
I thought you might go there.
In my mind, if I have to do one that isn't Temptation Silent Night, I think it's Stevie Wonder Sunday at Christmas.
Okay.
No, it's Stevie Wonder That's what Christmas means to me. Sorry.
All these things and more, darling. Oh, that's what Christmas means to me, my love.
That Motown Christmas album is insane. That is one of my favorite. Like I did music production for years, and I used to like just mine that thing for like little breaks and little like 2-second snippets that I could use. Like Marvin Gaye song. I have made at least 3 beats using the Marvin Gaye song on that album.
The Purple Snowflakes?
Yes. I love it.
Softly they float. Where do they go? Cover the ground without a sound.
All right.
That's a bop.
Favorite brown liquor jam. And I made this one nebulous because you have a couple that you be having to explain to people where you put things out there. People be... That's one thing I do think is funny when I do get in the comments and people don't understand prompts. I'm like, boy, this is real simple.
Yo,
this shouldn't be that difficult.
It's so simple.
It's supposed to be fun.
Right. And like people really be like, well, when you said, did you mean Jill Scott, Crown Royal on Ice?
Ah.
Your hands on my hips, pull me right back to you. I catch that thrust, give it right back to you. You're in so deep, I'm breathing for you. You grab my braids, touch my back half for you.
That's a good one. I like how quick you are with this. I should have came up with a bunch of them. I was like, let me just throw 3 out here since I'm going to throw this at you out of the blue.
Right.
All right.
And y'all gonna see that next year. Favorite song that involves liquor. Thank you, y'all can thank. I'm gonna give credit to Panama for that.
You don't even have to. Just run it. It's perfect. All right.
Right.
What song would be your theme music?
Oh, so this varies depending on what day you ask me. It's often Tribe Called Quest, Electric Relaxation, because I like to pretend that Tip's first verse is about me. I'm just saying.
Honey, check it out, you got me mesmerized. With your black hair and your fat thighs. Street poetry is my everyday.
But,
I gotta stop.
If not that, I mean, I actually do have a theme song. I'm literally named after John Coltrane's Naima. But it's a little too much of a ballad.
Okay.
Into a mid for that to actually be an active theme song. So I don't know. I'm just gonna stick with Electric Relaxation for now. That's my joint for now.
You're my era. Midnight Marauders or Low End Theory? Which one's better?
Okay, so I finally had to concede. I had this fight for years. I finally had to concede that Midnight Marauders is the better album, but to me, Low End Theory is the definitive album.
Yeah, I've been having this argument for years. I recently did a podcast with somebody else about this because I think Midnight Marauders is far and away the better album. Low End Theory is just more important. Album. Low End Theory is more important.
Exactly.
To hip hop.
Low End Theory is the definitive album, but Midnight Marauders is the better. I fought that for a very, 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 very long time. But yeah, Midnight Marauders is the better album, but Low End Theory is the pinnacle. Like that's the definitive Tribe album to me.
All right. Last question on this before we go to a break and then come back to some of my favorite segments here at Dear Culture.
Okay.
What is your absolute favorite experience that you have had because of the Music Sermon series that you do?
Oh, wow. This one's hard because it's granted so much. You know what? I will say, I think, if not my favorite, definitely one of the most important for me. So I get my curation skills from my stepfather, who passed in 2007. But he was an audiophile master, like tape maker, curator, putting everything together, music historian. And at the opening of the National Museum of National Museum of Black Music in Nashville, I met Jimmy Jam. My father was a huge Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis fan. It took me a minute to actually realize, like, there was an era where he just ran, like, the Sherelle album, the Alexander O'Neal album, the Control album, the SOS. He was just running them all the time. And it took me a while to realize, he was running Jimmy and Terry. It wasn't about the artist. It was about the production. And so I went up to introduce myself to Jimmy, and he stood up and he said, "I know who you are." He gave me a hug and he was like, "Let's take a picture." And I almost passed out. And he is the nicest guy. And like, he follows me. We've been in Clubhouse rooms together. I've seen him a couple of times since. But just that fact that Jimmy Jam said, I know who you are, and stood up and gave me a hug. And he was like, let's take a picture. And we just had the longest conversation. That moment, I was just like, that's wild. That's really, really, really wild. And that wouldn't have happened without Music Sermon, ultimately.
That is awesome. I'm a Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis stan. Like, I have written several articles. I put the whole Janet Jackson's albums are better than Mike's albums, like, combo in the universe because of Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis.
But for real, they are actually.
They are. It's facts. I did. The first podcast episode I did for this particular podcast was about that. Because I'm like, I'm kicking the door open. Like, I want y'all to know where I'm coming. I want everybody to understand this. Jimmy Jam started following me on IG. Like, I literally screenshotted that and sent it to my family. Like, yo, I don't know if he knows me in these streets, but he knows me here. I have one at life. I don't have to do nothing else. So nothing. I'm with you. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, that was massive.
Well, I love that. All right, we're going to take a quick break here, Dear Culture. And when we come back, we're going to do our vaunted signature segments here. We're going to drop a Black Fashion. We're going to have a Black Commendation. And we're going to find out where you can follow everything Naima's doing if you aren't already. But if you listen to this podcast, you probably already are and actively engaging. So stay tuned here on Dear Culture.
The Griot Black Podcast Network is here. Everything you've been waiting for. Black Culture Amplified. Find your voice on the Black Podcast Network. Listen today on the Griot mobile app and tune in everywhere great podcasts are heard.
All right, we're back on Dear Culture with Naima Cochran, who's been giving us some great stories. A great story about Jimmy Jam, which is somebody I love and think highly of. Jimmy, if you check this out, you are my guy. We need to talk. And breaking down your music sermon series, something that everybody I know participates with and indulges in and loves, and music snobs like me live for that kind of stuff, just so we can try to show everybody else how much better my musical knowledge is than everybody else's, even though I often get proven wrong. But I also mostly use it as an opportunity to always work in Return of the Mac, which I think is the greatest song of all time, and find a week or a day to somehow work in Ray J's catalog, because Ray J is one of my favorite people on the planet. So I love it.
Right. Ray J is the Forrest Gump of black music.
Listen, I love Ray J. And I think I've actually managed to work him into every single episode of Dear Culture thus far. Possibly.
That's amazing.
Is amazing and probably a little bit scary. But we're gonna kick off this final segment with a Black Fashion. Black Fashion being a Black confession, which is something about you personally that might fly in the face of that whole black people are a monolith type of thing, right? You know. So do you have a Black Fashion for us?
Yeah, I have two actually. The first one is something I don't do. The second one is something I do. I cannot jump double dutch, which for a black girl in her 40s in New York is actually possibly a criminal offense. I can turn. I got a mean turn, but I can't jump. And I was just about to take lessons. There's actually a school for adults who are trying to get the double dutch game up. And I was about to look into lessons right before the pandemic. So I need to pick that up. So my second one is something that I do that people were really surprised about. It's a hobby I picked back up during shutdown. I fell off. I need to get back on it. But I'm into miniatures, dollhouses, miniature furniture. There was like a whole miniature explosion during the pandemic. Okay. Not the dolls, but to create things that exist in real life in miniature is fun. And also, you can kind of splurge a little bit, but like on a 1/12 scale. So like little KitchenAid mixers, little Gucci bags, custom furniture, all of that. I was doing it for a while and I was documenting it. I was restoring a dollhouse and documenting it on IG, and I got a lot of, I didn't know black women, black people did this. So it's not really a black space, but that's one of the reasons I wanted to do. I wanted to create black things. Like I have little itty bitty church fans, that type of thing.
And especially interesting because on The Wire, Lester Freeman, that's what he did. He was all into that. And I remember that being like, this is such an interesting, like, random thing to give for him as a hobby in this show. But I love it.
It's a great hobby.
Okay. Well,
it's meditative.
You make them yourself, or you
Okay. Well, that's the thing. You can buy a bunch of this stuff, right? But for me, the joy is in, and it's expensive. It's not a cheap hobby. But if you want quality stuff. But for me, the joy is in, can I recreate things that exist? Like, can I make a Ciroc bottle? Because I can't find one. You know, like, I made, made little versions of vinyl. I made a little Peach Crown Royal for the Isleys and for the verses with the Isleys and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Like, I made a little Peach Crown Royal bottle. That felt appropriate. So it's like, it's just, I want to make like a little hot comb and a can of Dax hair grease. Like those type of things that you can't really find. The joy for me is in, can I make them? And can I recreate them? It's in the craftsmanship of it.
That's pretty cool. I like that. That's a very interesting. It's a very interesting hobby, and very cool. Okay, all right. So we're gonna take a quick break here on Dear Culture. Stay tuned. Now we switch from the Black Fashions to Black Recommendations, which are recommendations about something for, by, and about Black culture. Do you have a Black recommendation? Something that people need to be up on?
I do.
All right.
My all-time number one book recommendation is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, which is a story about the Great Migration, which, surprisingly, again, going back to putting Black culture in context, I noticed that there's younger millennials and Gen Z. I think we assume that people know a lot of things without actually passing them down, where we got them passed to us and we're not actively passing them down to the next. And I'm noticing like a kind of disconnect and people not necessarily understanding why everybody from Chicago has family in Mississippi, or, people in Oakland have family in Texas, or everybody up north in New York has family from South Carolina, North Carolina, or the food similarities or the dialects, etc. And it is a book about the Great Migration that follows one or two families along each migrant route. And it reads like fiction. It's really an incredible read. And it explains so much about Blackness in America. I highly recommend it to anybody who's never read it.
And don't be intimidated by how big the book is. It really does read more quickly than you think.
It reads like fiction.
It really does. It's a sizable tome, but it also is a very amazing, enjoyable, interesting, educational read that I agree. I think everybody can get something out of that. Well, thank you. This has been awesome. I really do appreciate it.
No, it has. Thank you.
Where can people find you? How can people keep up with what you got going on? Where are you at?
So I basically live on Twitter at Naima, Naima.
See, one name, Naima.
Music Sermon. My Twitter page is the Music Sermon page on Twitter, but Music Sermon has its own IG, which is at Music Sermon. And on IG, I'm at Naima Graham, Naima Graham. But if nothing else, you can find me at NaimaCochran.com or MusicSermon.com.
All right. Well, I appreciate everything you do for the culture, everything you do to keep people like me. Like, you're literally one of the people, like, and this is going to be a very lofty statement, but I genuinely mean this. So just trust it when I say this, I mean this. Like, I feel like Questlove does not get enough credit for being a cultural curator of literally every one of my interests, right? Like,
right.
I had this realization one day. I was like, yo, Questlove literally is for people in my generation, our generation, that literally is doing all of the stuff that I'm interested in. You are another one of those people.
Yeah.
Like, the stuff that you do is literally in the vein of all the things that I'm interested in. All the from the music, like looking at your bio and stuff like that. Like, these are all the things. Like, I read you had a hand in the Aaliyah's catalog coming back out, right?
Yes.
Which I don't know if I don't know if everybody knows that, but you need so much credit for that because I've been arguing for years that if your music ain't streaming, it doesn't exist. And Aaliyah was so instrumental to music today that if people can't hear this, it's like an entire legacy of music that we're missing. So the fact that you had a hand in that, and I don't even know what that hand was. If it was one hand, two hands. It was,
I'll clarify. I didn't have a hand in it coming back, in the fact that it came back to streaming, but I had a hand. I was one of the marketing consultants for the rollout, and it was exactly what you just said. Like, this legacy is too big to just drop it and be like, all Aaliyah's music is streaming. Because just putting it all out there at the same time. I wanted to make sure people experience the album top to bottom because there's a whole generation of people who haven't experienced Aaliyah albums top to bottom because even the physical was out of print. So that was really kind of like the moment we were going for. So thank you for that. And also, I wanted to say for the record, Panama, I knew who you were when I met you. I knew your name. I had never seen you, but I knew, like, first of all, a name like Panama Jackson, you don't really miss that. Like, you have a name to do things. Like, then your name was created for you to be doing some things. So yes, I knew who you were.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time out with us here today at Dear Culture, sharing all this stuff. Like I said, I can't say enough. You're somebody who I follow all the stuff that you're doing because it literally is something it interests me. And music sermon, I'm actively participating, arguing with people, trying to outshine and outdo people. So you have a fan for life in me in that respect. You know, I look forward to other things that you got coming up and to be doing. Thank you for your time. And thank you to everybody for listening to Dear Culture and watching a podcast, an original podcast here on the Grill Black Podcast Network. If you want more of this original content, more of these conversations like this that amplify blackness, amplify black voices and black storytelling, make sure you check out our app, the Grio's app. It's available anywhere you get your apps. It's amazing. Yeah. I actively use it. All the stuff is there. Please email all questions, suggestions, email scams, reply to my request for money at podcast@thegrio.com. Dear Culture is an original production brought to you by the Grill Black Podcast Network. It is produced by Camille Cruz. Our editor is Cameron Blackwell. Taji Sr. is our logistic associate producer, and Regina Griffin is our managing editor of podcast. I'm your host, Panama Jackson. Thank you to everybody for listening and checking us out. Have a black one.
Don't forget, you can listen to the Grio's Writing Black podcast hosted by me, Maisha Kai. This isn't your typical writing podcast. We interview any and everybody that has anything to do with writing, from comics to poets to authors to journalists to politicians and more. Remember, that's Writing Black every Sunday right here on the Grio's Black Podcast Network. Download the Grio's app to listen to Writing Black wherever you are.